All right, so jumping right in, you guys wanted us to take a deeper look into this whole SoFi thing and their goal of becoming like the AWS of fintech.
Ambitious, right?
Yeah, super ambitious. We dug into this article titled SoFi, Can It Really Become the AWS of Fintech? And
It's fascinating stuff.
yeah, yeah, tons to unpack here. Can they really pull it off, or is this all just hype? What do you think?
Well, the thing that really jumps out is that SoFi doesn't want to just be another fintech success story, you know? They're aiming for something way bigger. Like, they want to become the fundamental infrastructure for the entire industry.
Whoa, okay, so not just playing the game, but like building the whole stadium. Okay.
Exactly. They're thinking big picture. Think of it this way. If every fintech company is building its own house, SoFi wants to be the ground they all build on.
Yeah, I like
The
it.
plumbing, the electrical grid.
The essentials.
Yeah, exactly. The stuff everyone needs.
The article mentions that SoFi went on this huge spending spree and dropped over $2 billion on companies like Galileo and Technisys.
Yeah, they weren't messing around.
Were these smart buys or just impulse purchases?
Oh, no, the acquisitions were very strategic. SoFi knows what they're doing. Take Galileo, for example. They snagged them for $1.2 billion back in 2020.
Wow.
Galileo specializes in payment processing. Think like Visa and MasterCard, but for the fintech world.
Okay. Makes sense.
It's the lifeblood of any company that's moving money around digitally.
Makes sense. And what about Technisys? That was the other billion-dollar purchase, right? They do something with like old school banking systems.
Yeah. Technisys is all about bridging the gap between that old legacy banking software and the modern fintech world.
Okay.
A lot of fintech companies struggle to integrate with traditional banks. It's like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah, I get it.
And that's where Technisys comes in. They help smooth out that process.
So they're making it easier for these newer fintech companies to work within the existing financial system.
Exactly. The old systems are like clunky dinosaurs compared to the nimble, digital-first approach of these fintech startups. Technisys helps them speak the same language.
Okay, so it sounds like SoFi's building this one-stop shop for fintech,
Right.
providing the back end so anyone with like a great app idea can just hit the ground running. Is that the big vision?
Yeah, that's the core of it. SoFi's idea is that companies wouldn't have to build their own infrastructure from scratch.
Yeah.
They could just plug into SoFi systems and focus on what makes their product unique.
And that's a game changer if it works.
Yeah, it could completely change the game for the industry.
The article also mentions that there's a lot of skepticism around SoFi actually being able to pull this off. What are the biggest hurdles they're facing right now?
Well, for one, integration's a huge challenge. It's one thing to buy these companies, you know, but it's a whole other thing to actually merge their technology, their culture, their operations. It's got to be seamless.
Right. It's not as easy as it sounds.
It's like baking a cake, you know. You can have all the right ingredients, but if you don't mix them properly, it's going to be a disaster.
Yeah. I've definitely baked a few disasters in my time.
We've all been there. But besides that, they're also betting on these traditional banks to play along right.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's a bit ironic, isn't it? Like, fintech was supposed to disrupt the big banks, but now SoFi needs those same banks to adopt their technology if they want to succeed.
Yeah, why would those big institutions even want to use SoFi systems? They've got their own way of doing things that they've been using forever.
Well, SoFi's hoping that their system would offer those banks something they can't easily build themselves, Things like agility, lower costs, access to cutting-edge features that they don't have.
I see.
But the problem is that big banks are notoriously slow to change.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Is it just resistance to new technology, or is there something else going on there?
What do you think it is?
I think it's more about risk and regulation.
Yeah.
When you're dealing with millions of customers and billions of dollars, any kind of tech upgrade has to go through tons of testing.
Uh-huh.
It's got to meet these crazy strict security standards.
Right, because it's people's money.
Exactly. So it's not like they can just flip a switch and everything's changed.
It's a process.
This could be a very long and slow process of convincing these big institutions to actually get on board with SoFi's vision.
So while they're trying to make these big changes, they're not exactly playing in an empty sandbox, are they?
Definitely not. There are some serious competitors out there.
Who are the big ones?
The article mentioned a few names like Marqeta, Stripe, and FIS. Have you heard of those?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
They're all vying for that same market share.
Are they taking a similar approach to SoFi, or are they doing things differently?
Well, they're all kind of playing in the same general space, They're all trying to build infrastructure for fintech,
Right.
but they each have their own specialties and approaches. Marqeta, for example, They focus more on card issuing and payment processing.
Okay.
And Stripe, they've built this super powerful payments platform for online businesses.
Gotcha.
SoFi is trying to do something a little different. They're trying to build this broader, more holistic ecosystem.
So it's a crowded market, and it seems like SoFi has their work cut out for them.
For sure.
But is there anything unique about their approach that might give them an edge? I mean, something that sets them apart from the rest?
Well, one thing that sets them apart is their consumer-facing side of the business. They've already got this very successful online banking operation with millions of customers.
That's true. I was just thinking about that. It's almost like they're building this massive fintech engine, but they've also got this sleek, consumer-friendly car already out there on the road.
Uh-huh. I like that analogy.
Thanks.
It really highlights how that existing customer base gives them this unique advantage. They can test and refine their technology in real-world scenarios,
Oh, yeah, that's smart.
gather valuable data and feedback along the way.
But is that really a strength, or could it be a weakness? The article talked about this perception problem that SoFi is dealing with. What does that even mean?
It means that they're trying to be both a leading online bank and the powerhouse behind all these other fintech companies, and that can be kind of confusing.
Ah, I see what you mean.
Like, are they the cool new car, or are they the factory building the engines?
It's hard to be both.
It's a tough balancing act, for sure.
So they've got this bold and ambitious vision for the future of fintech.
Yes.
But they're also dealing with the realities of competition, regulation, and winning over all these skeptical customers.
It's a lot to juggle.
It is. So we've laid out some of the challenges, but are there any reasons for optimism? What makes you think this whole AWS of fintech thing could actually work?
Well, it seems like they're taking a long-term approach.
Okay.
And they've already got a strong foundation to build on.
They do.
Their consumer banking business is doing really well, and they're clearly committed to investing in the future of fintech.
And those big bank deals might still come through, right?
Yeah, they might.
It could just take a while.
Even if it takes time, landing just a few of those major clients could be a huge turning point for SoFi. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It would signal to everyone that SoFi is a serious player.
A force to be reckoned with.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's imagine for a second that SoFi manages to figure all of this out. They overcome all these challenges. What would a successful outcome look like for them? I mean, what would it mean for SoFi and for the fintech world?
Well, in a best-case scenario, SoFi becomes like synonymous with fintech infrastructure.
Okay.
They become the platform that any company, big or small, goes to when they want to launch a financial product.
So they'd be like the Intel of fintech, the company powering everything behind the scenes.
Exactly. They would be the invisible hand shaping the future of finance, enabling all this crazy innovation and bringing new products and services to market faster and cheaper.
And for SoFi, that would mean?
Massive growth. Their stock would skyrocket. They'd have this level of influence that could reshape the entire industry.
Wow.
They'd be the gatekeepers, the enablers, the architects of this whole new financial world.
So the stakes are super high.
Oh yeah, incredibly high.
They're betting big on the future.
And it's going to be fascinating to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've covered their big vision, the challenges, the potential. But before we move on, there's one thing that's been on my mind this whole time. We talked about how their consumer-facing business could be both an asset and a challenge.
Right.
But could it also be like the key to their success?
That's interesting.
Like, what if they don't need to win over those big banks right away?
Okay.
What if they're just focused on building the best possible experience for their existing customers and then let the rest of the industry try to catch up later?
I like that.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a fascinating question. Could they become so successful with their consumer products that other fintech companies are basically begging to use their technology?
Yeah, exactly.
Like they create this pull effect
Yeah.
rather than having to push their solutions onto people.
They could become like the Apple of fintech, you know?
Yeah.
Building this super desirable ecosystem that everyone else just wants to be a part of.
Brilliant. That's a completely different way of looking at it. Maybe they're playing a much longer game than we initially thought.
Maybe they're not just building the AWS of fintech. Maybe they're building something entirely new. Something that combines the best of both worlds.
What do you mean?
Like the agility and innovation of fintech with the reach and resources of a traditional financial institution.
Whoa, that's powerful. It suggests that they're not trying to just copy what Amazon did. They're trying to create something totally new, this hybrid model that could disrupt the industry from within.
Maybe SoFi's greatest strength isn't actually their technology, their acquisitions, or their ambition. Maybe it's their understanding of the consumer.
Interesting take.
Their ability to build products and services that people actually love and use.
That's a brilliant observation. It totally reframes the conversation. We've been so focused on the back end, the infrastructure. But maybe the key to their success is actually on the front end.
With the customer.
Their ability to create this seamless and enjoyable customer experience.
And if they can do that, maybe they don't need to convince those big banks to join them.
Maybe the big banks will have no choice but to follow their lead.
Now, that's a bold prediction.
It is.
But we've seen this happen in other industries, right? Think about how Apple's success with the iPhone basically forced every other phone maker to adapt and innovate.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So maybe SoFi isn't just trying to be the AWS of fintech. Maybe they're trying to become the Apple, the Google, the Amazon of finance.
Wow.
A company that doesn't just provide infrastructure, but actually shapes the whole landscape of how we interact with money.
Now, that's an exciting prospect.
It is. SoFi's journey is far from over, and it seems like the next chapter could be even more transformative than the last.
I agree.
Okay, so we've explored their ambitions, the challenges they face, and all the potential.
It's a lot.
But just like any good story, there's always more to uncover.
Oh, yeah. Tons more.
More questions to ask.
And that's what we're going to do in the next part of our deep dive.
We're going to be taking a closer look at their competition, their financial performance, and those broader trends shaping the future of fintech.
Can't wait.
So stay tuned, because things are about to get even more interesting.
Buckle up. So picking up right where we left off, it's incredible how SoFi is trying to be both a consumer-facing brand and the backbone for all these other fintech companies.
Yeah, it's kind of like they're building a house and living in it at the same time,
What do you mean?
Like they're trying to build the foundation and decorate the living room all at once.
Uh-huh. That's a great way to put it. And it makes you wonder if maybe they could be more successful if they just focused on one path,
Yeah, like should they be the best online bank out there or the silent force behind every other fintech app? It's a tough choice.
It really is.
Almost like choosing between being a rock star or a world-famous music producer.
Yeah, exactly. Each path requires a different set of skills.
So we've talked about their vision and all the challenges they face, but let's get down to the numbers. How is SoFi's core business actually performing? Are they making money?
Well, this is where things get interesting. Their consumer banking segment is actually doing extremely well.
Really?
Yeah. They have a growing user base, they're expanding into new financial products, and they're bringing in serious revenue.
So it's not all smoke and mirrors. They actually have a solid business backing up this big vision of theirs.
Oh, absolutely. And that's a super important point. They're not just chasing some pipe dream.
Right.
They've got a proven track record of building successful financial products.
That makes me think about their acquisition of Galileo.
Yep.
That payment processing platform. You mentioned it was a big bet.
It was.
But are they actually seeing a return on that investment?
Well, this is where things get a little tricky.
Okay.
Galileo definitely has the potential to be a total game changer. But its adoption by those big banks has been slower than expected.
Why is that? Is it just the typical slow-moving nature of these big institutions, or is there something else going on?
It's definitely a combination of things. You've got those complex systems in place, they've got super strict security requirements,
Right.
and they've got a natural aversion to risks.
Of course.
Integrating a new platform like Galileo is a big undertaking for them, and it could realistically take years before it's fully implemented.
So SoFi might have the technology ready to go.
Yeah.
But they're also dealing with the reality that not everyone moves at Silicon Valley speed.
Exactly. Patience is key in this game.
Patience.
Even if those big bank deals come through eventually, SoFi needs to be able to handle the short term while keeping their eyes on that long-term prize.
Speaking of the short term, let's talk about the competition.
Okay.
We've talked about Marqeta, Stripe, and FIS.
Right.
Are these companies serious threats to what SoFi is trying to do?
They're definitely forces to be reckoned with.
Right.
Each of those companies has carved out their own little niche in the fintech infrastructure space.
Right.
Like Marqeta, they've really made a name for themselves in card issuing and payment processing.
So they're like the master card makers of the digital age.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And then you've got Stripe.
They seem to be everywhere these days.
I know, right? They've built this incredibly powerful and versatile payments platform.
What do they power exactly?
Think of any online store you use
Okay.
or the subscription service you use.
Right.
Chances are Stripe is probably handling those transactions behind the scenes.
Oh, wow. So they're more focused on the online commerce and digital payment side of things, whereas SoFi is trying to build something broader.
Yeah, exactly. They want to build this whole ecosystem.
Got it. And what about FIS?
FIS is a much larger and more established player. They offer this huge range of financial technology solutions to banks and businesses all over the world.
Okay, so it sounds like a pretty diverse playing field with each competitor bringing their own strengths to the table.
It is.
So where does that leave SoFi? How can they even set themselves apart in such a crowded market?
This is where that consumer-facing side of their business comes into play again.
Oh.
That direct connection with millions of users is a huge advantage.
So it's like they have this built-in laboratory where they can test and refine their technology in real-world scenarios?
Yeah, exactly. They get to gather all this valuable data and feedback that their competitors just don't have access to.
That's pretty smart.
It allows them to adapt and improve quickly.
So while their competitors are focused on selling to businesses, SoFi's got this direct line to the people actually using those financial products every single day.
That's a really good point.
It's the difference between reading a report about what customers want and actually watching how they behave in real time.
Oh, yeah. It's like the difference between studying a cookbook and actually running a restaurant.
Yeah.
You get a completely different level of understanding when you're dealing with customers directly.
That's such a good analogy.
And all that hands-on experience could give SoFi a major advantage over the competition in the long run.
Because they're not just building the plumbing, they're designing the faucets and the shower heads, making sure that the whole experience is smooth and enjoyable.
They're thinking about the entire customer journey, not just the technical aspects of moving money around.
Okay, so we've talked about SoFi's strengths and challenges, but let's take a step back and think about the bigger picture for a second.
Okay.
What are some of the big trends that are shaping the future of fintech? How does SoFi fit into all of that?
Well, one of the biggest trends right now is the demand for personalized financial services.
What does that mean exactly?
It means that people don't want those one-size-fits-all products anymore.
Right.
They want solutions that are tailored to their specific needs and goals.
I can definitely relate to that.
It's moving away from that traditional banking model where everyone gets the same checking account and credit card.
Okay.
People want financial tools that fit their lifestyle, their values, their aspirations.
Makes sense.
And technology is making it possible to deliver that level of personalization.
And how does SoFi fit into this whole trend? Are they in a good position to capitalize on it?
Oh, they're in a prime position. Their consumer-facing business gives them tons of data about their users' habits and preferences and financial goals.
Right.
They can use that data to create products and services that are truly personalized.
It's like they're not just offering a menu of financial products.
Right.
They're acting more like a financial concierge,
Oh, that's a good way to think about it.
helping people navigate their financial lives in a more personalized and hands-on way.
It's like having a personal financial advisor in your pocket,
Yeah,
powered by artificial intelligence and mountains of data.
that sounds pretty awesome.
And it's a trend that's only going to get bigger in the coming years.
Yeah.
As technology keeps evolving, we're going to see even more sophisticated and personalized financial products emerge.
So SoFi's focus on the consumer could actually be their secret weapon.
It could.
It allows them to stay ahead of the curve and really anticipate those changing needs of the market.
That's a great observation.
Yeah.
It suggests that their consumer-facing side isn't just bringing in money.
Yeah.
It's actually a source of innovation.
And a competitive advantage.
Exactly. It's like they're constantly getting feedback from their users and figuring out what works and what doesn't.
Right. They're always learning.
And that could be a major driver of their success.
So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive,
We have.
but it feels like we're just scratching the surface.
I know there's always more to uncover.
SoFi's story is complex, and there are so many different angles to consider.
And it's a story that's still being written.
It is. The next chapter could be the most exciting one yet.
I can't wait to see what happens.
So before we move on, let's take a step back and think about the big picture for our listener.
Okay.
You know, the person who's trying to make sense of SoFi's whole journey and the future of fintech.
What are the key takeaways?
What do they need to know?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that SoFi's playing a long game here.
They're not just focused on those short-term gains.
They're building a platform they believe will change the future of finance.
So patience is key for anyone following their story.
Yeah, it's not a get-rich-quick scheme.
It's a bet on a complete shift in how we interact with money.
Exactly. And another key takeaway is that their consumer-facing business is a huge strength for them.
It could be their biggest advantage.
It sets them apart in this crowded market. It allows them to innovate and build products that people actually enjoy using.
Right.
And lastly, I think it's important to remember that the future of fintech is still very uncertain.
Yeah, there are no guarantees.
It's going to be fascinating to see how it all unfolds.
Who will be the big winners? What new technologies will come out? Will SoFi actually become the AWS of fintech?
I don't know. Those are all great questions.
Yeah.
We don't have all the answers yet, but we can speculate and analyze and just enjoy the ride as the story unfolds.
So buckle up, listeners, because the world of fintech is moving fast and things are only going to get more interesting from here. It really does feel like we're watching this like modern day gold rush in the financial world.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone's trying to get a piece of that fintech pie.
It's a great analogy. And just like those old gold rush towns, there's this sense of excitement, opportunity, but also a ton of uncertainty. Like who's going to strike it rich and who's going to end up empty-handed.
Exactly. We've talked a lot about SoFi and their competitors, but what about the listener at home who's maybe thinking about investing in fintech? What advice would you give them?
Well, first and foremost, do your research.
Okay.
Don't just jump on the bandwagon because something sounds cool or exciting.
Right.
Take the time to really understand the companies, their business models, who they're competing with, and their long-term prospects.
So it's not just about chasing the next hot stock tip.
Right.
It's about understanding the underlying fundamentals.
Exactly. You got to look beyond the hype and try to figure out what the company's real value is.
Okay.
What problems are they solving? What makes them stand out from the crowd? And how sustainable is their business in the long run?
It's like buying a house, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't buy a house just because it has a fresh coat of paint.
Exactly.
You'd want to check the foundation, the wiring, the plumbing.
You want to know what you're getting into.
Exactly. And in the world of fintech, that means really understanding the technology, the regulations, who they're competing with, and just the overall trends shaping the industry.
That's all super important.
And speaking of trends, we talked about that growing demand for personalized financial services.
Right.
But what are some other trends that listeners should keep in mind as they're exploring fintech?
Well, one that's really gaining momentum is the rise of embedded finance.
Embedded finance, what's that?
It's basically the idea of integrating financial services seamlessly into other platforms and apps.
So instead of having to use a separate app or website to manage your finances, you could just do it all within the apps you already use.
Exactly. Like imagine you're booking a flight online and you can get travel insurance offered right there during checkout.
Oh, that would be so convenient.
Or you're buying a car and you can get a loan pre-approved without having to fill out a separate application.
That sounds awesome.
That's the power of embedded finance.
But what does that mean for the companies that are actually operating in this space?
It's a whole new set of opportunities and challenges for them.
Okay.
Companies that can figure out how to integrate financial services into their existing platforms are going to have a huge advantage.
So it's not just about building the best financial products, it's about creating the best overall customer experience.
Exactly. And that requires a deep understanding of how people actually use these products. Seamless integration, and just a focus on delivering value at every single touch point.
So it's not just fintech anymore.
No, it's not.
It's like fintech plus everything else.
Yeah, the lines are getting blurry between fintech and all these other industries. We're seeing it embedded into e-commerce, social media, transportation, healthcare. It's everywhere.
It really is.
And this whole convergence of industries is creating this totally new ecosystem of possibilities.
That's exciting.
It's a super exciting time to be involved in fintech.
Yeah.
But it's also a time of rapid change and disruption. Things are moving so fast.
So for our listeners who are just starting to learn about fintech, what's the best way to stay informed and keep up with all these changes?
Well, there are a ton of great resources out there. You can follow industry blogs, listen to podcasts, go to conferences, and just connect with other people who are interested in fintech.
That's great advice.
And don't be afraid to ask questions, challenge assumptions, and really think critically about everything you read and hear.
It's so important.
The world of fintech changes every day,
It does.
and you need to be able to separate the hype from the reality.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into SoFi and the future of fintech, I think the biggest takeaway for everyone is that this is just the beginning.
Oh yeah, just the start.
We're watching this massive shift in how we interact with money, and the implications are huge.
Definitely.
This whole story of fintech is filled with innovation, disruption, opportunity, and a whole lot of unanswered questions,
So many questions.
which makes it even more fascinating. We have no idea how it's all going to play out.
No clue.
But one thing's for sure, it's going to be an exciting and transformative journey.
I agree.
So stay curious, stay informed, and keep exploring the world of fintech. Who knows what incredible innovations are just around the corner.
The future is full of possibilities.
And on that note, I think we'll wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us, everyone.